So which methodology should I choose? Should I choose state-based or migration-based database development? Everybody asks the question, and there's no easy decision. There's no right or wrong answer. Ultimately, the decision really depends on which paradigm works better for your team in most of the cases where you'll perform development. I certainly do recommend that you pick one or the other for all of your development and not switch project to project, but that's up to you. DevOps allows you to implement things however you'd like. I do find that most developers prefer one or the other. They find it to be a more natural way to work, but you'll have to decide in your team. I prefer the migration-based approach. I find it more natural to both develop code from and also deploy code from this methodology, but you'll have to decide. As I said, in a team of any size, you're going to find that invariably some people will not like your choice. You won't have consensus, and since the two methods are actually incompatible, you're going to force people to choose to write code in an awkward process, but they'll get used to it. They may complain, you may have to deal with that, but that's part of DevOps, is changing culture and getting everybody used to working together. And usually after a short time, people get used to whichever process you've chosen and they get back to their normal development speed. Now, it's important to know that neither of these methods or methodologies is inherently better than the other one. State-based migration reduces the tracking requirements for changes, right? Developers don't have to worry about it. And some developers certainly prefer this, and many DBAs actually do as well, because they can allow development to proceed. They can try experiments, they can abandon things, they can change code, change it back, never worry about what's changed. When they think development is complete, they use a comparison tool to compare the state of the code to the target environment and produce an upgrade script. It's simple, it's quick, it's low burden on developers, fairly low burden on DBAs as well, and it's very easy to do. It certainly means that deploying the entire schema to all production databases is very simple as well, right? Because I just have a state where I'm moving things. And the other thing is I can visualize the state of the database at any point in time. If we contrast this with migration-based development, then developers are tracking every script. Even if they're using some tool to help that process, there's a bit of a burden here. And you have to consciously think about ensuring that every script is being tracked and it's ordered. At the very least, you're going to have more scripts and more commits in the version control system than some developers prefer, or than they might otherwise expect. So there's issues there. If I change the same object multiple times as I'm changing functionality or I'm correcting issues, I may have lots of changes, whereas in the state-based world, I'll only have one script that has all the changes. Now, in state-based comparison, the downside is that certain complex changes, data manipulations, renames, column splits, it's not handled, and developers still have to handle and write this code, which means they somewhat have a separate process that they have to deal with. Now, any changes that are undone in development will still exist as a script in migration-based development, so that could be an issue, right? If I add a column, I add a stored procedure, I drop that column, do some other changes, add a different column later, or add the same column again, I'll have to do that multiple times in migration, even though maybe there's no net effect in the final database. The other issue with migrations is that, like I said, you never have a complete state of the database in your version control system, and so that can be cumbersome or difficult for developers to deal with. If I wanted to get the state of the database at some point in time, whether that was just to look at how the state works with a particular version or do a bug fix, I'd have to execute all the scripts to that point in time and build a new database that would allow me to see what it's like. Cumbersome, difficult, good or bad. On the other hand, migration-based development does make some things easier. I can deploy to many different versions of downstream databases. If I have clients at multiple versions, I can send them the same set of migration scripts and all upgrade to the same version. I can handle any database change with migration-based development. Any complex, strange issue that I have to solve, I'm writing the code, it's going to execute as I've written in production or in downstream environments, so I can handle any sort of issue. And then lastly, I can handle any data manipulation in migration-based development. So that makes it easier to handle than in state-based development, where I might have to use pre or post scripts or do some sort of separate methodology of dealing with data manipulation. As I said, neither one of these is better or worse. Neither one of these is easier, harder, more correct to answer. DevOps allows you to choose what works best for your environment, for your team, and your situation. Evaluate the pros and cons, try both of them out, and decide what works best for you.